Okay, so have you ever wondered what would happen if a bunch of rival countries just decided to stop fighting and form one giant team? Well, today we're diving into this really fascinating moment in Scandinavian history when three huge kingdoms did exactly that. They created what you could pretty much call a Nordic superclub.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Three powerful kingdoms, often at each other's throats, suddenly deciding to join forces. You know, it sounds like something straight out of a fantasy story, right? But this was a real thing. This was the Kalmar Union.
And there it is, the Kalmar Union, or the Kalmar Union. It gets its name from the city in Sweden where the whole deal went down, way back in 1397. And honestly, the best way to think about it really is almost like a club. This wasn't one country taking over the others. It was a strategic team-up between Sweden, Denmark, and Norway. But why? Why would they do this? I mean, this wasn't just about being pals all of a sudden. No, this was a massive strategic play. It was all about power and unity in what was, let's be honest, a pretty dangerous world back then. And their goals were super clear. First off, they knew they'd be way stronger together than they were apart. Second, they wanted to finally stop all the pointless, expensive wars they were constantly fighting with each other. And third, and this is the big one, they needed to defend themselves from common enemies. It's that classic idea, right? United we stand, divided we fall.
All right, so that's the why. We get it. But who is actually in this super club? Let's take a look at the official roster.
So the three main players, the big three, were of course the kingdoms of Sweden, Denmark, and Norway. But it gets even bigger. See, at the time, Finland was basically part of Sweden's deal, and Iceland belonged to Norway. So when Sweden and Norway hopped on board, they brought Finland and Iceland with them. I mean, you're talking about a massive chunk of Northern Europe all under one banner.
But even with those other territories involved, you got to remember, the heart and soul of this thing, the real shot callers, were Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. They were the ones running the show.
So how in the world do you manage an operation like this? You've got three powerful members. You need a leader, right? And their solution for who is in charge is honestly one of the most interesting parts of this whole story.
They literally created a new job title, the Union Scown, or Union King. This wasn't some committee or a rotating presidency. Nope, it was one single monarch who was the king or queen of all three kingdoms at the exact same time, one ruler to lead the whole shebang.
And this right here is the core idea of the whole union. It's this delicate balancing act. On one hand, you have one shared king making the huge decisions. We're talking war, peace, international trade, the big stuff. But on the other hand, each country got to keep its own laws and its own local way of doing things. Central power, but with local identity.
And what's wild is that the person who put this entire thing together, the very first leader, was the incredible Queen Margareta. But get this, even though she was a woman, the official job title was still Union King. That just shows you how totally new and kind of weird this whole political setup was.
Okay, so this brings up a pretty obvious question, right? A king can't be in three places at once. So what happens in Sweden when the Union King is over in Denmark holding court? Who's minding the store?
Well, they had a pretty smart answer for that. The Riksfyrstandar, or regent. The easiest way to think of a regent is like a substitute teacher for the kingdom. They were a temporary leader who would step in and manage one country while the actual monarch was out of town.
And the system was beautifully simple. Step 1, the Union King isn't there. Step 2, the regent takes over to make sure things don't fall apart. But, and this is the key, Step 3, the second the king walks back into the country, the regent is powerless again. The king is back in charge. All the real power always stayed with the crown.
Yeah, you can almost just hear the king bursting through the doors shouting, "I'm back, who ran the country without me?" It's a funny way to put it, but it perfectly captures the idea that the regent's power was totally temporary. It only existed because the monarch wasn't there.
So, if you're going to remember one thing from all this, what should it be? Well, it all boils down to this one really powerful and kind of tricky idea. One crown, but many laws. At the end of the day, the Kalmar Union was this incredibly bold historical experiment. It was a groundbreaking try at creating a unified Nordic superpower led by just one person, but without totally wiping out the individual cultures and laws of each kingdom.
And that leaves us with this huge question. This whole setup, one leader but separate rules, was that a recipe for success, or was it just bound to cause trouble?
It's that tension, that exact push and pull that would define the Union's entire existence. It makes you wonder, which force was actually stronger in the end? The crown that brought them together, or the laws that kept them apart?